Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Ayin Vov Amud Beis. Starting the last two words on Daf Ayin Vov Amud Aleph. The Gemara is going to speak about now the different dinim when it comes to two things that are cooked in the same oven. Says the Gemara, Amarav, Basar shechuto shamein shetzloi im basar nevela kachush aser. Says Rav, even if you have that basar, which is kosher, it was shchuta, which is fatty, that together in the same oven as basar nevela, which is of course not kosher, that is not fatty, that will be aser. In other words, even if you have in the same oven two different skewers that are distant one from the other, one is considered to be shchuta, while the other one is nevela. He says that the fattiness of the basar shchuta will go into the basar nevela, and then it will also transfer back to the basar shchuta, whereby he says that it's aser. My time, mifatne bahadodi, because they fatten each other. That's the shita of Rav. V'Levi Omar, Levi is cholik. Afilu basar shechuta kachush shetzlo im basar nevela shamin mutter. He goes to the other extreme. Now, this Rav said his case when you had basar shchuta that was shmeina together with the nevela that was kachush, and he said that's the din that's going to be aser. Kol shekain, it was the opposite. If the basar that was shchuta was kachush and the nevela would be shamin. Here, Levi says even in that case, where the nevela is shamin, still it will not transfer over to the basar that is shchuta when it's shared in the same oven, and therefore mutter. My taima explains because reicha ba'almahu v'reicha lav milsahi is just reach and does not enter the meat that causes it to be aser. Avi Levi uvda beresh galusa begedi v'davar acher. The Gemara tells us that Levi, he then followed his opinion in the Reish Galusa, that he allowed even a gedi that was kosher to be in the same oven as a davar acher, as pig. The Gemara now says, Meisvei, the Gemara asks the following question on Levi. Ein soilin shnei Psachim ke'echad b'mnei hataroivis. It states in the Mishnah, or in the Tosefta rather, that you cannot roast two different korban pesachs because of the taroivis. Now, each korban pesach has their chabura that was counted for that korban pesach. So over here it states that you can't be tzoila, you cannot roast two different korban pesachs in the same place. Why? Because of the taroivis, whereby that tam lachara will enter the other one, whereby you'll be eating from a korban pesach that was not shechted, it was not for your particular chabura. My lab da taroivis ta'amim v'kasha leLevi. Is it not because of the taroivis of the ta'amim that will then enter into the other korban, whereby it makes it so that it's possible, it's aser, and therefore it'll be a kasha on Levi Shita, who says that it's merely reyach, it doesn't transfer? Lo, he says, Mibnei taroives gufin. Here there's a concern that you might come to then mix up the karbonos. And again, for the same reason, since you were shechting the carbon specifically for this particular chabura, and not for a different chabura, if it would get mixed up, then it would be considered to be shalol la'oichlov, and therefore, or shalol la'menuyov, and therefore it will be then aser. Hochinam mistaber, it's mistaber to say, it's talking about this concern of being taroives gufin. Midiktani seifa, from the fact that it teaches in the seifa of this Tosefta, it says afilu gedi v'tle, even a gedi and a tle cannot be go ahead and roasted together. If you're going to say that the concern is that you might mix up the two different karbonos, then that's why it says a stress, even two different animals, a gedi and a tle. There's a concern. If you're going to say it's merely a concern of the ta'amim that get mixed up one with the next, as a result of roasting it together, then mali gedi v'tle, mali gedi v'gedi. Why mention even a gedi and a tle? Because even if it was not going to be just a gedi and a tle, if it was simply a gedi and a gedi, it would be equally problematic. Elamai, what are you going to say? So it's not a kasha on Levi, but then it would be then a kasha on Rav. Al korcha b'nei taroives gufin hu de aser. The reason why over here in the Tosefta that it's aser to then roast a gedi and a tle together is because we're worried about a taroives of gufin and not a taroives of tamim. Avatovis tamim shori when he mutter leimat yavit yuvda de Rav. Then this Tosefta is going to be a refutation on Rav Shita that does say that the roasting together causes the ta'amim to then enter one into the other. Omar Rabbi Yirmiyahu, hacha b'mayaskina. What are we dealing with over here in this Tosefta? Kigon shetzaloi b'shtei kederos. We're talking about when it was roasted in two different pots. Ask the Gemara, b'shtei kederos sakadaita. Can you even have such a havamina that it should go up on your mind that it was roasted in two different pots? We're talking about roasting a korban pesach, which is required on a spit. What he meant to say is it means like two pots. In what way is it like two pots? It means to say that it's there being roasted, and in between of them there is enough ashes so that the taroives tamim does not go one for the next. Ein soidlin shnei psachim ke'echam ne taroives. My taroives, what is the taroives that we're talking about? Taroives tamim. Va'afilu ke'ein shtei kederos, the leke taroives tamim oster mishum taroives gufin, va'afilu gedi v'tle. Here we're talking about that they put enough ashes, again, in between the two different korbanos. One was a gedi and one was a tle, so that the ta'amim do not mix with the other. And still there's a concern, says the Tosefta, because maybe one will then mix the goof with the other one, giving one chabura one animal, and giving the other chabura the other animal, whereby they'll then be eating a korban pesach that is possible. Omar Rav Mari Kitanoi. Rav Mari says this machlokes between Rav and Levi, whether the ta'amim are going to be misarev and oiser, like Rav says, or not, according to Levi, that's a machlokes tanoim. As follows: Haroy de pas chamo v'nosna api chavis yayin shel truma. One who takes hot bread out from the oven and he puts it on top of a chavis of yayin shel truma. Rabbi Meir says it's also because the fumes of the yayin will then enter the bread. Rabbi Yehuda Matir, Rabbi Yehuda says that is mutter to even non-kohanim, because we're not considered to be concerned about those fumes as if they entered the bread, because they don't transfer. Rabbi Yosi Matir b'shel chutin, shel chitin, v'oisi b'shel sa'arim, b'mnei shahasa'arim shel avos. He makes a chili, Rabbi Yosi, and he says if it's chitin, then it doesn't absorb. However, if it's from sa'arin, then the sa'arin, the bread of the sa'arin of the barley, does shoyev, then does draw the fumes of the wine into it, and therefore it will be osir to non-kohanim. My lav tanoihi is not, then we see that there's a machlokes tanoim whether we say taroives ta'amim or not. The mar savarecha lav milsehi umar savarecha milsehi, that the opinion that says that it is mutter, namely Rabbi Yehuda, says that the reicha is not a milsa, whereas the opinion of Rabbi Meir, and truthfully Rabbi Yossi as well, because he says when it comes to sa'arim that also is shoyevis, they hold that it is a milsa, and therefore it will be a taroivis of ta'amim. The Gemara says, L'Levi vaday tanoi. According to Levi, certainly it's a machlokes tanoim, because Levi has to admit that Rabbi Meir and even Rabbi Yossi agree, they both say that it is a milsa. That means that we do say that the taroivis ta'amim, whereby Levi would side with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says that it's not a taroivis ta'amim. So Levi is forced to explain this Mishnah as a machlokes tanoim. L'Rav neima tanoi, but according to Rav, is it required to say this machlokes tanoim? In other words, Rav, he could say it's a machlokes tanoim, just the way Rav Levi, just like where Levi is explaining, but he could also say otherwise. Amalach Rav can say to you, the Kuli Alma Reicha Milsi. Really, everybody holds that Reicha is a Milsi, even Rabbi Yehuda. But Lav Itma Allah, is it not taught on this Mishnah, that it's in Nemi Rish Lakish to explain this Mishnah? When it's hot bread that is on top of a open casket of wine that is truma, everybody agrees it's also to non-kohanim. Whereas when it is pas that is cold, and it's on top of a casket of wine that is closed, everybody agrees that that's mutter, certainly doesn't transfer. They're arguing only about pots that is hot on a casket that is closed. Pas tsoinenes v'chavis psucha, or pas that is cold on an open casket of wine that is truma. And this Mishnah also is talking about when the bread is hot and the casket is open. So therefore everybody would agree that there is a transferring of the ta'amim. That means even Rabbi Yehuda, but only over here is not talking about that. And therefore, the Raishita over here is agreed upon by everybody. Everybody agrees that there is such a concept of the transferring of the ta'amim. Says the Gemara, Tani Rav Kahana Bered Rav Chainana Saba. He taught the following brisa: Pas she'ofa in sli betanur. If you have bread that is baked in the same oven as a roast, also la'oichle bekutcha. You can't eat that bread with a milchik dip. This milchik salty dip cannot be eaten together with this bread, because this bread retains some of the meat that was then baked, that it was baked together with the roast, and it's fleshig. Hahi binsa the itva bahadi bisra. If you have fish that was roasted together with meat in the same oven, asra rova miparzikya lemichle bekutcha. He would prohibit one to eat this fish together with this milchik dip, because this fish was cooked in the same oven as the meat, whereby the fish becomes also something that was then absorbed from the meat, whereby you can't eat it together with the milk, with the dairy dip. Marba Rav Ashi Omar, afilu b'milcha nami asur. Even the fish alone, that means that the fish alone, that was alone, and he's eating was salted alone, that also, since it was baked in the same oven as basar, as meat, that also is a problem. Mishum dekashya l'reichel davar acher, because it has something that causes bad odor and also causes tzaras. So therefore, he's machmir and says even b'di'evid, you would not be able to then go ahead and eat such fish.